Hi, good morning. My name is Rachel Gillespie. I'm the Revenue Operations Manager at Knowledge Lake. Welcome to our webinar today featuring Russ Malls, VP of Sales at Knowledge Lake and co-author of Evolutionary AI, and Jason Burian, VP of Product at Knowledge Lake. Today, we're going to delve into the transformative potential of intuitive AI and synthetic labor, technologies designed to understand, learn, and evolve with human oversight. We're going to discover how these advanced AI solutions can accelerate workflow and automation with zero training, leading to increased operational efficiency across your organization in days. So before we begin today, just a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available to view on demand later today. And we do encourage your participation, so please feel free to ask questions in the chat window. We will be monitoring that throughout the presentation today, and we would be happy to address all of them during the Q&A session. So with that, Russ, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Rachel, and good morning to everyone. To get started, I just want to quickly review our agenda. We're going to start with a brief look back on AI in 2024. We're actually going to go back 10 years and forward 10 years and look at where AI might be going. And then talk about organizational readiness before we jump into some real-world case studies and a demonstration of our product. We will leave time at the end for questions. We do ask that people hold questions to the end. So looking at AI, we decided to do a 10-year look back to put some perspective on where we've gone over the last 10 years. We know this technology is changing very quickly. Looking back 10 years, starting in 2014, AI began to gain significant traction probably in the mid-2010s, primarily driven by advancements in machine learning, particularly deep learning. And during this period, AI's capability expanded beyond complex tasks to things like image and speech recognition. We saw companies starting to integrate AI into their products. Personal recommendations and voice assistance were two of the early areas where we saw good traction. Around 2018 to 2020, we started to see more natural language programming, and we started to see the emergence of AI as a service. This enabled more sophisticated chatbots. We started to see the rise of virtual assistants. AI-powered analytics began to gain some traction. And in healthcare and finance, we started to see AI used for better decision-making. Moving forward, 2020 to 2023, sort of the time span we just went through the last few years, we started to see the proliferation of AI becoming more ubiquitous in business operations. AI-driven automation tools began transforming industries, reducing costs and improving accuracy. And the emergence of Gen AI, particularly GPT-3, as we know, we started to see new areas for content creation, coding, and even creating tasks. At this point, AI's role expanded from enhanced existing workflows to enabling entirely new business systems and models. And as we look at the current state, 2024, where we are now, we believe AI has matured into a critical component of business strategy. Companies are leveraging AI for real-time data analysis, customer insight, and personalized marketing at scale. AI's integration into business processes have led to the emergence of what we call synthetic labor, where AI systems handle complex, non-repetitive tasks traditionally performed by humans. This focus has shifted towards the development of AI that can work collaboratively with humans, enhancing productivity and creativity. So we're starting to see some real emergent technology as we speak. Looking forward to the next 10 years, what we're starting to see, and again, for this framework, we really relied on the work done by Sam Altman and his company. We looked at the 5 different sort of phases that he came up with as we look towards artificial generalized intelligence. Now, according to Altman, we're going to get there in 10 years. Some people say it's 50 years, some people say 5 years. But we don't know the answer. But what we do see is this continued acceleration. We believe AI is growing exponentially. So we're starting to see a continued acceleration. Level 1, conversational AI, chatbot. So the conversational AI, ChatGPT and Claude we already discussed. This is sort of where we are now, and we're seeing a lot of advances in customer service agents, coaches, and writing social media. Level 2 is on the frontier, and this is pretty pretty interesting. Many in the industry are starting to refer to level 2 as reasoning AI. So reasoning AI will solve basic problems, allegedly compared to humans with a PhD. This will be more comprehensive, and the AI should have more human-like capabilities. According to Sam Altman and crew, we're now at 1.5. So possibly, right, with the around the corner, we're looking at ChatGPT 4.5 coming out in the next month or two, probably 5.0 coming out 6 months, maybe. Maybe this is when we sort of make this jump. But we do expect to see continued changes. As a matter of fact, even in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of really interesting technology. Even the Llama 3.1 advances we think were very interesting and create some parity between ChatGPT 4.0. Level 3 moves us to an area of what we're calling autonomous AI, where agents can operate autonomously on a human's behalf for several days, and the automations will become more robust. Now, this concept of agentic AI is starting to gain traction. Bill Gates and others have talked about it. This is still a ways off. There's some early technology that people are working with. We're not seeing a lot of this being adapted yet, but we do believe in the future we're going to see more advances here. Again, imagine having someone, an example would be for autonomous AI, if you would think about having some of these around your business while you're taking a vacation. Right now, automations don't work every time, but if you can imagine a future where if you're gone for a day or two, the systems can answer questions on your behalf and respond well without breaking, that would be sort of a vision for what some of us see, some of the industry sees as level 3. Level 4 gets even further towards artificial generalized intelligence and would move towards what we're calling AI innovators, where systems can develop innovations independently, not just running processes. Again, this is pretty futuristic. It's probably pretty far off. Many people in business right now are thinking about improving the business. In the future, we think that the AI or the thought is that the AI can help organizations actually innovate and improve their business. And then finally, the end game or the final phase of AGI would be where AI performs the work of an organization. In this case, AI would be really, every person would currently have and every function carried out would be covered by AI. Again, this is aligned with the vision that Sam Altman presents. What's interesting is as we look at this sort of roadmap, there will be many changes. There's a lot of companies putting a lot of money, driving a lot of innovation in the space. And we do believe we're going to continue to see rapid expansion towards reasoning AI and autonomous AI over at least the next 2 or 3 years. And that's really where our company's been focused. So we're starting to see some of this now, and we expect to see more. Why this matters? Candidly, we're seeing a real focus from our business partners in the industry on improving operational efficiency. And we're seeing now the opportunity for AI to improve efficiency. The focus it will be on leveraging technology and process to not just replace people, but really to allow the organization to perform and improve business performance in a measurable way with more efficiency. So we're seeing this as sort of priority number 1. Related to this, right, we're having many conversations where our customers and partners are talking about if AI isn't successful, it really could be existential for their business. So we're starting to hear a theme of AI, or what we're calling synthetic labor, becoming a trusted source of work to operate under human supervision and help companies thrive. And the idea here is that if you think about agents, it's not agents necessarily performing work that people do. It's agents performing certain types of tasks, certain types of work that are either boring, repetitive, not fit for people, or can be outsourced so that the people who are in charge can do more work that involves creativity and innovation. And this is where it gets really exciting for us. we've come up with a term. We've been working with this in market now for 2 or 3 months. We call it synthetic labor. And we believe synthetic labor will have a very positive impact on the future work. And it's a good lens to look at the advancement of AI and how AI can be impactful. Synthetic labor was designed from the ground up to handle business critical tasks and perform enterprise white collar work. So as we looked at where the industry was going, rather than focus on technical use cases, we found it was very interesting and impactful to focus on work, the nature of work and how work was done. Synthetic labor has some agentic qualities, and it allows the labor to understand and improve over time. And our vision is that synthetic labor will continue to get smarter as we see more emergent technologies. The one thing we know is that there will be change. There will be change, and the change will continue to accelerate. We're already seeing some of that. If you look at the frontier models in large, the frontier large language models. So our goal is to enable synthetic labor to take advantage of this without disrupting operations. And really, when we summarize what we're looking for from synthetic labor, it's to help companies thrive because fewer smart people will be doing more work better. Here's an example based on several different existing customers that we have, opportunities that we have, and partners that we're working with. And this is really a design pattern that we're seeing emerge. So this is representative, but does give examples that we're seeing in market now. In this case, we have a COO and we have several different VPs. 2 of the VPs have offshore resources or they have large teams. In one case, we have a VP of document processing. They have over 1,000 offshore resources. The work product capacity, the amount of work the entity is able to do, is about 100%, right? In this case, let's call it 100% to just sort of baseline. And what we're seeing is that when these entities use synthetic labor, a few things happen. Number one, they can have fewer people. They can reduce staff and still do equal or more work. In this case, we are seeing baseline metrics between 150 and 200%. I don't want to overstate. It's really exciting. And by first iteration, this is iterative and incremental. So what we're doing is, in one case, we're looking at certain quality metrics. And if the work product output exceeds the quality metric, we can straight through process it with automation. If not, it kicks out to a human in the loop. In doing this, the company we're working with is actually looking for 100% ability to to double their work capacity without hiring any people. Really exciting, and the kind of partnership and the kind of innovation we're really looking forward to. So going further along, is your organization ready, right? Here's some top buying themes that we're seeing, and we're seeing these again across the industry. Number one, outcome-oriented solution, scalability and flexibility, AI-powered insights, security and compliance, and integrated platforms. In addition, what we're seeing is many companies looking to make decisions by committee. So these types of AI buying themes, we believe will continue and in some cases will accelerate. We're seeing a real interest in the market for clear business benefits, meeting needs now, but also having the ability to scale and scale with flexibility, and then producing AI insights that drive results. Security is a must. I don't think we need to say more about that, especially in light of what's happened over the last couple of weeks. If anyone traveled on Delta like I did last week, you know what I mean, week before, right? And then integrated platforms, really interesting. There's many siloed platforms, and we're seeing more market demand and more advantages of integrated platforms because, right, there's one vendor to deal with and we can move faster. In addition, I think this recent study from PricewaterhouseCoopers summarizes very well some of the sentiment in the market. They interviewed over 4,000 CEOs, and nearly half said they're concerned their organizations are not likely to remain viable if they don't change. So again, the very existential threat of, we have this new emergent technology, it has the potential to make change, what do we do? Many customers are struggling with, where do we go first? How do we do this? And the question I've heard a lot from senior business leaders and technical leaders is, okay, enough science projects. How do we demonstrate that we can deliver meaningful business value to our executives? 90% of executives believe AI will have a significant impact on their business. Should be no surprise. There's a lot of budget here. The global spending is really significant, and the predicted spending is even more. And we're seeing this in hardware, in the markets, and in software, of course. So what are we seeing successful customers demand? Number one, again, I mentioned this before, but a single vendor hyper-automated solution has been something that we've had a lot of positive discussion about, because it's less fragile, it's faster time to value, and there's a speed to market element that's important. Fully managed, 100% cloud. Many solutions were built to be in-house. The reason was many legacy applications were in-house. So there are a lot of latency issues. More and more, we're seeing demand for, and people realizing benefit, customers realizing benefit from a fully managed cloud experience. Bespoke, exactly what the customer needs. Unlike traditional software, where we're often seeing AI solutions, where in traditional software, we'd see a solution that has to fit a certain design pattern. More and more, we're seeing businesses looking for a somewhat unique solutions that's really tailored to the unique requirements of a business. And this bespoke nature of an open system is something that we're seeing more and more customers demand and be successful with. Design for production, again, there's a lot of software on the market now that's sort of prototype-ish, that isn't really designed for production. We think it's really important that systems are designed for production. Again, we talked about scalability, et cetera, and that they're intuitive and easy to use. But moving from where companies are now to a future, an AI-enabled future, is really hard. It's crossing a difficult chasm, fraught with a lot of challenges. Many companies right now are trying to dabble in generative AI. They're using generative AI with some success, but mostly they're using it for small projects. Like marketing can improve their ability to deliver a presentation by 4 hours or 8 hours by using Gen AI. That's good, but it's really a point solution. We think there's a lot more power, or we're seeing a lot more evidence of power when AI is applied departmentally. However, empowering business users is difficult and fraught with political pitfalls. I use my own organization as an example. We're using our software right now to change the way sales are done on my team. I want to make sure that we as a company drink our own champagne, use our tools, walk our walk. So a salesperson would normally say, well, I don't want to automate selling because then I won't get paid commissions. So one of the ways that we tackled this was from an organizational change component or a mindset component. Was we're having our account leaders, our AEs, really own an industry vertical, be very familiar and spend more time talking to customers, and use automation so that for customers that do not want to talk to a sales rep, and believe it or not, more and more customers would prefer to understand things on their own, right? We want to enable that. We want our salespeople, again, to drive thought leadership so that if synthetic labor is able to sell our software in their industry, they get credit for it. I think the organizational change component in that example is probably more important than the technology itself. So when we see companies successfully crossing the chasm, dealing with the organizational change is critically important. One of the fastest, easiest way we're seeing companies improve work with AI is starting with paper. Even though many people thought paper would go away, we're still seeing paper documents in the US growing at over 20% a year. 95% of corporate information is still tied up in paper. And older systems are a great place to start an automation journey because they're hard to fix when things go wrong and they're vulnerable to security threats. So our guidance where we're seeing success is starting with paper-based systems, some of the older systems, and automating from there. And with that said, a little bit of background, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Burian, who's going to talk to us about how our technology works and provide specific examples of how we can get to value quickly.
Great. Thanks, Russ. So I think that's a great lead in. I think, to just summarize what Russ was saying earlier is, we see generative AI as a real game changer for organizations. I use it daily to do simple things like writing emails or building presentations or creating board slides or, what have you. But those sort of ad hoc, micro assistants, they're valuable, right? But organizations are trying to figure out how to push AI into their core processes that run their business, and deliver real value. Like I think I like Russ's analogy earlier of like, it's time to stop running experiments. And if we're going to make an investment in it, we need to be able to drive tangible, real value. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just who Knowledge Lake is and where we leverage AI in a couple of different use cases that are pretty prevalent for our customers. So like at the heart of what Knowledge Lake is process, right? Where intuitive AI can really have some meaningful impact across all of these different places. And I'll show you a couple of those. But we start with data. Sometimes that data is just simple information. Somebody fills out a form for financial aid or a loan. But oftentimes, the processes that run so many of our businesses are really document centric. They're PDFs or emails or images that arrive to us from outside of our organization. And those need to go through a process. That process needs to be standardized. It needs to be bulletproof. It needs to be production ready. And then often at the end of that process, that data needs to go someplace else. It needs to go into an ERP or line of business system, a data warehouse or a data lake. It needs to be shared with other team members or reports built on what we learned during that process. So at the core of who Knowledge Lake is, it's process. Russ talked a little bit earlier about sort of what customers are craving. And I think these are the things that make Knowledge Lake unique in our marketplace. We are truly cloud native and cloud scalable. This is not software written 20 years ago that's been jammed into virtual machines and run for you. This is truly elastic, containerized, scalable, production level cloud software. We do have a unique way that we price. I think that, if we look back over the history of software, it is number of desktops and number of users, right? That's the way that so many organizations decide to price. And that's not really close to value for a customer, right? You're processing a student's transcript packet for enrollment. That's the thing that matters, not how many people participated or how long it took or how many desktops it ran on. It's the outcome that you're trying to drive that is the real value to your organization. I think the last two things, we really are an end-to-end platform. There are a lot of great workflow and process automation and RPA and intelligent document processing platforms out there in the world. And if you are lucky enough to have an IT team big enough to go get 3 or 4 solutions and stitch them together, then count yourselves as one of the lucky ones. But a lot of organizations like Knowledge Lake, we've got to find full platforms capable of solving end-to-end problems in a single UI that doesn't require a bunch of integration and code and require the learning of many different solutions. And then finally, most importantly, I think, all customers, all users, all people crave things that are easy to use. It started with the revolution with Apple and their iPhone, and it is permeated every single thing that we do, from the interfaces that we use in our car to the software that we crave when we go to work. All right, so a couple of use cases where we have applied generative AI and and driven real value, real tangible production level value for an organization. This is just an example of what we're talking about here, but organizations get documents, maybe not as complicated or as old as this one, but trapped inside of this document is information. It's names and dates and contents. And so we use generative AI to unlock information from those structured documents. One of the organizations we've been working with for a couple of decades now is Washington University. And they have, like a lot of universities, they get transcripts, and not all transcripts look the same. Notre Dame and the University of Illinois and Harvard all have different transcripts. Different high schools across the country have different transcripts layouts. This is what we call unstructured data. The information you're looking for on things like cumulative GPA and number of credit hours and name and date and school and stuff like that, it's trapped inside this information. But we can use AI to unlock that data to be used in the process. And then in the middle of the process, we can use AI to accelerate the human decision making. We all know that so far, just like self-driving cars, we're not fully ready to get in the back seat and let the robot do all of it. But we are ready to have the computers help us, to guide us, to be our coworkers, to be our co-pilots, to be our AI assistants, to help us make better decisions faster, like Russ said. And so here's an example of, a human has been assigned a task to approve this applicant, and AI has created a generated output based on this university's business rules on what are the criteria that we use to evaluate exceptional candidates, right? Every university is looking for the top 10%. And so how do we make sure the top 10% gets surfaced? How do we make sure our business rules get applied unilaterally without bias? And then how do we summarize all of that data and make a recommendation? So you can see here a number of different data points have been evaluated about this student, and then a recommendation's been made. And again, not that the recommendation gets automatically approved, but it's there to guide the user and accelerate their decision-making by summarizing lots of complicated data points into an easily digestible component here. A group of organizations that we work with a lot are financial services institutions, banks, credit union, wealth management companies. And they're always looking to apply new technology to get an edge, not just on customer service, which is a huge, being able to run processes faster and more accurately to provide a better customer experience. That's a primary way that banks compete. But also in an example like this is things like anti-money laundering, being able to use AI to read data on both the front and the back of checks to then build a network of who their bank is doing business with. So this person's writing checks to these parties are signing those checks and cashing them. This is the web. This is the network of people that are moving money in and out of our organization, and then using AI to not only get that data, but look at that relationship and then identify, do we have bad actors that are participating inside of our bank? Just one of the things that AI can do. And then finally, document processing has been around for a long time. One of the things it's been good at is structured data or semi-structured data, things like transcripts or invoices, but things like contracts or legal documents that we would consider highly unstructured has been complicated. But AI has really unlocked the power of being able to get at this information. So here you can see we've gotten, document type and case number and plaintiff and defendant. Okay, relatively simple. But we've also generated a summary, a non-legalese summary of the document that can also be used during a process or for searching or for finding this document or relating what it's about. So Knowledge Lake works in a pretty simple 4-step process, all no code, low code, and pro code accessible. and like you said, can be tailored to fit exactly your use case. Going back to what Russ said before, that customers don't want to change their patterns to adopt software. They want the software to modify itself to adapt to how they like to do business. So the first thing is building a process, building a workflow, building a standard set of business rules that this data is going to go through. From there, transforming unstructured information into structured data so that it can be used, so that it can be routed, so that it can be reported on, analyzed, etc. From there, we then build in automations. I already showed you the human in the loop portion of workflow, but we also, the part of the goal is to start to remove humans from those mundane, not fun, boring data entry tasks that frankly humans are just way too skilled to be doing. Humans should be providing better customer service or doing analysis or helping grow the business, affecting top line revenue. But often humans are sitting in a cubicle keying data. And so for that, we use automations. And one of the types of automations, we have a lot of different tools in our toolbox. One of the types of the automations that we have are RPA bots. And so these are used for where AI can't interact with the physical world, right? At the moment, AI is still trapped inside of its little black box. It hasn't fully gone Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, Skynet yet, which is good, I guess. But one of the limitations that AI does have is it has a hard time interacting with things outside that it can't touch. So core business systems or websites or databases that are kind of outside of its reach. And so we use things like APIs and RPA automations to bring AI to that other physical world. And then finally, we talked a lot about documents and document-centric processes. Those documents are corporate records. They need to be stored. They need to be organized. They need to be searchable. They need to be reachable. And so Knowledge Lake has the ability to store all of that content and make it easily retrievable. And then finally, there's just one last thing I want to talk about before we get to questions. I will reiterate for you that we, in the experience there's a questions button. You can type your questions. We will answer those at the end, I promise. So please, if you haven't typed in any questions that you already have, start doing that now. I wanted to wrap up with this because I think that we've talked about all the power. We've talked about all the opportunity created by generative AI, which there is a lot of. But I know that everybody is very concerned about data. We've all heard the stories of, somebody uploading the source code for the Samsung Android devices, and it's now part of the large language model that generative AI uses. And so there is this worry about, what am I sending to AI and what is becoming public and what is being shared with other companies and things like that. And I think it's a great question, one that you should ask any vendor or any partner that you work with in relation to AI. I'll just give you Knowledge Lake's perspective on it. We partner very closely with Microsoft and OpenAI and other AI services and data protection agreements. And our first and foremost primary concern is the security of our customers' data. So any data that we send to AI is not available to other customers. It's not used to reinforce and build the large language models. It's not used to improve the generative AI experience. It's not used to improve any products, including our own. We leverage AI, fully encrypted data sharing. Once the information is shared, we get the prompt and response back, and then everything is immediately destroyed. None of that information is kept or used by any other party, including Knowledge Lake. So I think it's a great question. And again, if you're going to do business with any party in regards to generative AI, please ask these questions, get these answers, because they're incredibly important that you know where your data is going and how it's being used. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it back over to Russ to wrap us up, and then we'll get to some questions.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, Jason. I really appreciate that. A couple of things I wanted to highlight before I move on to this slide. Number one, I think it's important to note that often we're seeing customers get to production quickly in a matter of weeks. And we're not always implementing 100% of documents, if we're starting with the document use case. Now, we don't have to start with documents. Jason gave examples of where we do, and I think it represents very well. But when we start with documents, we might say 60 or 80% are going to be processed straight through, and the other are going to go to humans. But if we structure things the right way, and when we do that, we are seeing meaningful business results. And this is a key thing. Many of our customers are telling us that they need to show value to senior management, or they want to show value to the organization and not do another science project. So the idea of an intuitive platform, of intuitive AI platform, where you're using AI, you're using it in the context of a platform, I think is very powerful. In terms of our organization, we have been a Microsoft partner the year before. We pride ourselves on uptime because we are designed for production. We have more than 2 million users in 35 countries that have used our systems. Now, this is because our company actually started 20 years ago. We rewrote our software 5 years ago. So everything was rewritten to be cloud native. Everything was rewritten on a modern architecture. And probably more importantly, everything was rewritten to be extensible and to solve business problems. That was the vision of our CEO. That was the vision of our product team. That's what Jason and team have done. That said, we do have a lot of customers, and because we have that, we've really, focused on being enterprise ready. And of course, we pride ourselves on our NPS score, which is quite high for our industry. So that's a brief wrap up. And with that said, wanted to offer up again how to get started. We do offer proof of concepts for customers that want to achieve value quickly. We do this in partnership with you. If you're interested, let us know, and we'll talk about your use case. And if it looks like it's a good fit and there's a win-win, we're more than happy to do a rapid proof of concept to kickstart things very quickly. That's all I had. Any questions? Jason, Rachel, any questions that we're monitoring here?
Yeah, we got a couple here. Let me. Oh, they just went away. Oh, they're there. Okay, Russ, maybe you could talk about this one. This person asks. I won't call you about name. I'll keep it anonymous here. Our organization doesn't have offshore labor, but we do have a lot of paper-based processes. Okay, so it looks like they're all onshore. Is synthetic labor still a better solution than RPA bots for us?
Yeah, so I would say, my experience with RPA is that RPA bots can deliver a lot of value. There's a lot of goodness that can be done there, and a lot of companies invested significant resource, time, energy, and money. Some RPA programs are very successful. A lot of them are under intelligent automation programs, right? Mm-hmm. But RPA is a narrow component of automation. So if things are working and you're automating some things, you might not want to make the transition to synthetic labor. However, if you're looking to the future and you're looking to innovate faster, it may make sense. Many RPA customers that we talk to who are using, again, an RPA specific product are telling us that automations can be brittle. They can be difficult to maintain. There's a lot of cost associated with on-site, in-house RPA platforms. One customer I talked to about a month ago said it was going to cost them $1 million to update their infrastructure and move to the next release of the RPA platform. If you think about synthetic labor, it's akin to digital labor, which some of the RPA vendors talk about, but it's sort of like a next level. So I like to think about it as a more sophisticated or more, I shouldn't say sophisticated, but I'll say a more nimble, right? A more nimble way to automate that's less brittle and that can deliver results very quickly.
Yeah, I think RPA is a great tool, but just like any great craftsman knows that you have a whole tool full of toolboxes, or toolbox full of tools, and you need to make sure that you apply the right one to the right usage, right? A wrench can be a hammer, but it's not the best hammer. And so I think my recommendation would be look for a platform approach that blends the best of automation tools, whether that's synthetic labor and RPA, human in the loop processes and experiences and workflow. I think. Okay. Let's see. What are the primary advantages of synthetic labor in managing complex problems, and how could it integrate with existing workflows? Russ, maybe you want to take the lead that one too. I'm just going to have you do all of them, Russ.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot, but I definitely want you to jump in and share more from a workflow perspective. But I would say that the primary advantage would be number one, I think, speed to value, right? So in other words, using sort of workflow that can integrate with reading and understanding documents, that can integrate with potentially RPA, that can be extensible using APIs, et cetera. There's a real advantage there to doing end-to-end tasks. In terms of integrating with existing workflows, I mentioned this before, and I think it's critical. The software, the modern architecture nature of our software is important, and also the design point to be extensible is really important, right? So some large vendors want to lock you into their product so you can't use different, let's say, large language models. We took an opposite approach. We want you to be able to integrate with whatever large language models, ERP systems, internal software, third-party software you can, be able to call out to an API, potentially pull data back, transform the data, and use the data to extend down a workflow and make that as easy as possible for customers. So I think those are two primary advantages. And Jason, I'll turn it over to you for more technical concepts.
I think just in general, we've built over the last 20 years, for better or worse, we've built workflows and processes inside of organizations that scale around people, right? If a university wants to accept more applications and enroll more students in a given time period, they go hire more people and they put them in those departments and they have them read more essays and read more applications and do more approvals. And, in the future, I think the winners of the world will be unbound by human labor. They'll use synthetic labor to augment their already smart existing people. They've got smart people that know the work and know the process. And those people just need the mundane or the ordinary, the 80% that just is like straight through processing. They just need that off their plate so they can be freed up to handle the complicated and the high value. And so that's where I think solutions like automation and synthetic labor really, really turbocharge an organization, right? Because they can grow, they can hit their growth numbers year and year and year and year and year and year after year without having to grow people. Because they already have great, smart people. I remember talking with an organization, they were a manufacturing company, and they had a plant in Colorado, and they were getting ready to open another one in North Carolina. And if you think about a manufacturing company, it's a lot of buying, right? I buy goods, they come in the front door, and then I manufacture a thing, and then my thing goes out the back door. That's kind of very simplistic, idiot's guide to manufacturing. And so they do a lot of buying, but they weren't going to double the size of their purchasing team, right? They weren't going to, we're going to double the size of our operations. We need to double the size of our purchasing team. So they brought automation and workflow and process to bear, and were able to do all of the new plants purchasing with the exact same staff. And I think that's a good example of where synthetic labor can be used. Okay. Last one. And Russ, I'm going to go to you again. What are the key considerations for implementing AI solutions effectively? Like if you were just if you were at the starting point as an organization, what how would you sort of line up your order of operations? What are some things you would consider? I'm paraphrasing now.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you would consider in getting an organization ready?
Yeah, I'll give this a quick answer. It's a great question. Number one, I'd start with considering how are we going to operationalize this. Too many people go off and do things as a project in a vacuum, and then they don't think about how they're going to move it to production. So I think about that up front. Number two, I'd bring in some elements of a cross-functional team, and I'd make sure that as we design this, we look to do something in a time box way. So I'd look at taking several weeks, making it not perfect, but making it so that we could take something to production, do some work quickly, and then iterate and improve. Unlike a traditional end-to-end waterfall approach, or even some things that we're seeing done using other methodologies, right? I think using synthetic labor in this way, thinking of it like an intern, like in almost like an idiot savant kind of way, it can do certain things really well. It's a great way to get familiar with that, almost like working with ChatGPT. Test and learn and go quickly.
Great. One last question here. How do you integrate the activities and results that an AI can perform with the activities and results that only humans can perform? So it's a great question. Right now, a human interacts with an AI and it sort of tells it something to do. Create me an email for this customer that has this topic, or create me a picture of a cat holding a magic wand. And so how do we put AI into process? How does it do things or summarize things? It's all about crafting the prompts and being able to inject the work that a human has done into the prompt, and then be able to feed the response to that prompt back to the human, but without making it a manual process. So I brought up the idea of this transcript processing. And so an AI has been built, taught, it's been given a persona on what it's there to do. I'm saying you. As an AI, you are a world-class educator and work in the enrollments department at a top 10 university in the United States, right? So you give it a persona. And then you give it what its goals are, what good looks like, what bad looks like. So a strategy called few shot examples. Potentially move into fine tuning, and you actually build in specific business rules with lots of data to build a very specific model. But then you're able to ask it questions. I have a student. Here's its enrollment packet. Here's its essay and its application. It's right. Based on our specific criteria, how would you judge this applicant? And then in the background, it's doing that work as new applicants come in, and then it's feeding that information to humans. Then humans are participating in their part of the workflow. And then we're going on to AI as the next stage, whatever that is, potentially drafting an email of acceptance or asking for more information. So it is sort of use case dependent on how we make that back and forth work, but it is absolutely possible and all part of our platform. All right, so I think that's it. We want to wrap up today. Again, I encourage anybody who's interested in getting really started, not just kind of started or experimenting with AI, but getting really started on a project that can deliver value with AI inside your organization. Take advantage of these proof of concept spots that we have available. And thank you for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun answering your questions. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.